Hello, welcome to another edition of Evolving Democracy. Today we will be talking about I don't do politics. I'm Joni, I'm here with my good friend Christy, and over the past couple weeks, both of us have encountered this phrase or this feeling from other people. And I understand the premise, but we're talking about politics in a little different context. With my friend Merriam-Webster, I will offer two of the definitions of politics. One, that the first definition is what the people that we interacted with may have been talking about. So the first definition is politics is the art or science concerned with guiding or influencing governmental policy. So in that sense, it's what we traditionally think about: legislature, the president, our state governments. But if you go all the way down to the fifth definition, politics is the total complex of relations between people living in a society. And that's more of what we're talking about today. That if you don't do politics, you kind of are anyway, because you're living in a society. You're living with other people, and what you believe and what you do influences the whole. What do you think, Christy?
Absolutely. This is how we sort of landed on this topic because there's certainly people that are like, I don't do it. I don't want to do it. It stresses me out. It's awful. But we do have our preferences and we do have the things that we support. And we may be doing politics without actually realizing we're doing politics. And I realized for myself, when I was still at IBM, still an engineer, I mentored a lot of young women in STEM, science, technology. What is that?
Engineering and math.
I started to say electronics, engineering and mathematics. And these were doctoral students, women. I didn't have a mentor when I was going through my doctoral program. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to be able to support these women in this way? Well, here I am talking about women and equity as being, equity for women as being one of my hot buttons for politics. Maybe I was being sort of political then. I just didn't call it that. I didn't label it that. But I was definitely committed and I definitely felt like I was helping a cause. And if you start thinking about the different causes you support, whether it's financially, with your energy, with your attention, maybe you are being political, but you just don't call it that. And that name sort of scares us away, but it may not be accurate that we're not doing them at all.
And what struck me about your STEM story is first, you needed to understand there was a need, that you couldn't just go, la, 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 la. I don't see that women aren't represented. I don't see that it was harder. I didn't notice it was harder for me going through. So you noticed the need, and then you said, well, there is something I can do. So it's not that that in all of political life, and honestly, we're being inundated with a fire hose of information. It's all across the board of stuff that's going on. But we can still find something that we care about and know and understand what's going on in that maybe even narrow area. But first you have to know there's a need before you can meet the need. And as Christy said, that we may be already doing that because we've already seen that there is a need in some area that's important to us, something that we value.
And it can come in so many different ways. It may be through your career, it may be through the health of a loved one, it may be something environmental that you notice. This is us paying attention, I think. Part of the I don't do politics, I think also is like, I don't see, I don't hear, I don't speak, I don't want to know. It's because it's so painful. But there are certain little bits that are probably going to come through. Like you may know if a data center is going in the town next to you or your town. You may know that there's been an EPA Superfund site, down the road from you. There may be things that come across your awareness that you wouldn't be actually seeking to find out, but because it's so in your face, prevalent, right next door, suddenly it becomes something that you notice. And that doesn't mean everyone's going to become an activist and go protest, but you might, I think you probably do, have an opinion on whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Some people are like, data centers, that's jobs, that's employment. Other people are like, oh my gosh, the water and the the temperature and all the things that are the downsides. So I think part of this is like admitting to ourselves that we may be a little bit more political than we realize.
And thinking that fifth definition, that it's how we interact with society and it's what we value. And with the local issues, it could be, your school board. If you have kids in school, what impacts you, and what gets that bear, that fierce energy going, tends to be when those we love are impacted. And that's not a bad thing. That's human nature. I know some people say, well, people should be compassionate and they should care about
Everything.
everything, that if you don't, then you're obviously not a good person. But that's not human. That just isn't human. First of all, we don't have the capacity for that much angst, and spreading ourselves across that wide area does not help us and does not help the causes. But beyond that, because we can, just as humans, we can live our lives and not really understand how someone else is impacted. But then when that comes into our awareness, we can go, oh, I never saw it that way. Which comes back to another theme we often come back to, which is curiosity. Is like being open to the possibility that we don't know. We don't know what another person's life is like. And also not demeaning people who may be going la 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 la, because they might just be doing that on one issue, or something is too painful, or it may be that there is a story we don't know that makes them want to not engage with that specific issue. That we don't know what anyone else's life and history and preferences are like.
I think this is key because we were in a situation where they want to polarize us. And so if we're like polarized even against people who are choosing to opt out, choosing to not be political, or at least not frame themselves that way, that's just creating more of that negative energy and judgment and estrangement. But if instead we can say, what's a compassionate lens towards that? One compassionate lens is, well, maybe you already are political, which is sort of what we're talking about today. Another one is, I get it, that it's overwhelming and it's hard. And if you can feel like this little tiny speck that can't do anything. I mean, that was kind of my perspective when I was not political in the more official way, is that it didn't feel like mine to do because I felt like I can't impact this. It's too overwhelming. It's a tsunami of stuff. What is there for me to do that it could actually make a difference? And it took me sort of leaning into, oh, maybe there's a little micro thing I do, and maybe that micro thing makes a difference. And maybe it makes a difference for me internally, and maybe it makes a difference for someone I speak to, or something. Like those women in STEM that I mentored, did I make a huge difference in the world? No, but I certainly made a difference for them specifically. And I'm not in touch with any of them now, but every now and then I'll run across one of them on LinkedIn or something, and I'll be like, aha, they've been successful. And I may have had a little hand in that, a little part in that for them finishing, for them being successful in their careers. Aha. So there is this little sense that we all are contributing something somehow. And that helps reduce that judgment and the self-judgment of like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Oh, I should be doing more. Like, what if what you're doing is exactly enough And like we said last time, but we could also perhaps stretch it to do a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and that what you talked about with the mentoring, it's we are links in a chain. And if we think about it that way, that's how can I create that next step for someone else, that next step for an issue that I care about, the next step for something that I value. So that, I talk all the time about being links in a chain or planting a seed, and that it reduces some of the feeling of I have to solve the problem. I have to see also that I have to see the result of my actions, which we want to so badly, and we want to see things change, but maybe we won't. And I'm not trying to be hopeless here, but getting the feeling that all I can do is my bit today. And if I can help someone else take up their, plant their seed tomorrow, then that's good. And stretching more, that thinking that I can plant more seeds, I can do a little more, and I won't necessarily see how it turns out. Like Christy with her mentees. It may be that you changed the world because of some of the things that they did, some of the lessons that you imparted in them. We don't know. And I don't, we probably shouldn't think, oh, I'm gonna change the world if I do this. But that sense of possibility, as long as we are acting in love, we are acting from our place of values, we are acting for the highest good of all, which is a phrase we often use. So how can I be that good planter?
And you've got me thinking something I've never thought about before. I mentored many, many women. It was decades of mentoring these women. They've probably gone on to mentor other women. It's sort of that spreading effect of like one leads to many more. Who knows what down the chain that there's some pattern that's been formed here that's now reverberating through something larger. We don't know, and it's okay to not know. And I think that this sort of leads me back around to something else that is important here, I think, is that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is really part of our work here. I feel like when we're here as humans, the avoiding everything that's hard and bad. Of course, we don't like it. It's uncomfortable to feel uncomfortable. But if we can sit with the idea that it also can serve a purpose, it also is something that perhaps we're doing because it's meaningful to us. On a very simple level, for example, maybe it's uncomfortable to exercise and you stretch and it feels, that's harder than I wanted or something, but there's a reward, that there's a payoff, there's a reason, there's a meaning behind it. It's not just something we're doing randomly. And so I think the same idea really helps here with the political ideas of we're doing this because it's meaningful to us. And that, of course, is what keeps the momentum going, the motivation going, because it does mean something. If it didn't mean anything, be like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm done. I'm going to go swim in the pool, or I'm going to go read a book. I don't want to do this. But instead, well, I guess here, like this feels meaningful to us, or we wouldn't be doing this week after week after week. There's something in it for us, even if we're putting this into the airwaves and maybe a tiny number of people see it. That's okay.
Right, because because it is meaningful to us, and because we are doing this from our own passion, our own values, what we want to see in the world. And going back to that definition of politics, total complex of relations between people living in a society. So there is this, Christy called it connection politics when we were preparing for this session. We connect to ourselves, which is what you're seeing with us. We are doing this because it is impactful for us, and we believe that it can matter. But we're also connecting to others. whether it's the people that are here live, the people who are
Thank you,
who
by the way.
thank you, yes, who watch later, the people who see a clip on YouTube from one of our videos. There's a connection. But we're also connecting to something bigger than that. And I would say that it is our own values, to what we care about. Christy would not have spent all those years mentoring in STEM had she not cared deeply about it, had she not valued women's contribution and helping women become all that they could be and not held back by the patriarchy. Sorry, men who are with us live. Uh, we know, we know it's not all men, but there is this overriding structure that makes it harder for women. And there's overriding structures that make it harder for a lot of people. And it's finding that niche, that thing that you value so deeply that you would spend your time, energy, money, attention to help bring about the world you want to see.
This brings me to the idea of empowerment, because there's two pieces of this that I want to mention. The one empowerment piece is you personally feeling I can take action, I have efficacy, I can make a difference, I can do something. And then the other piece is that your advocacy or whatever may then empower others. Like if you donate to an organization, you're then empowering them to go do something. So it's again that sort of chain of influence, of impact, like the ripple effect going out into the world. And if you say, well, my dollar isn't going to make any difference to that organization and you don't donate, well, of course it's not going to make a difference because you haven't given them that dollar or five or whatever the thing feels appropriate to you. And again, we are voting with our money. We're voting when we buy things. We're voting when we support causes. We're voting when we support candidates or when we don't as well. When we decide to opt out, that also has an influence. The thing is, I think we tend to underestimate how much influence we have on an ongoing basis. And we've talked about it in previous episodes about different organizations, different corporations that have stepped up and said, you know, we're favorable towards democracy and we care. And when we are purchasing things, we are making these active decisions to purchase the thing. We may not know what's behind the scenes. So it may not be a huge investment of time to look into, does this align to me? Do I agree with what they do or do I not? And now I'm a little obsessive looking at companies because I have to worry about things being gluten-free. So I already have a scrutiny level of like, oh, is it in a gluten-free facility and so on because I have celiac disease. But this is just a little bit more to go, oh, do they donate a lot of money to Republicans? I think maybe I'll pick this firm over here, which does not.
And we are, we are voting with our money. We are voting with our feet as well. And what we choose to go to and what we choose not to go to. I live in Maryland, outside of DC. I've spent most of my life here. And I'm not going downtown right now.
It's like, you're not going to the state fair or whatever they're
No.
calling it.
Well, also it's, 105, but
There's that.
DC is officially the hottest place in the country right now. But it's the sense of I don't even want to be the thought that I might be supporting something that I really don't support. I don't want that. And it's just thinking things through, seeing it broader. And people aren't going to understand. We get rude comments on our YouTube videos all the time from people who just...
From men, I will note. Carry on.
But if we are doing what we living in our values and doing what we believe is right, what we foster, then that becomes a protection against the haters. It, people aren't going to understand. And what was the quote, Christy? It's not my it's not my business what you think of
Oh,
me.
what you think of me is none of my business.
And we are going to go through the world with people not understanding what we're doing. But we have to live with ourselves. We have to feel like, have I done what I can so that I don't have regrets? Now, when I was in my pastoral counseling program, one of my internships was at a retirement community. And I can tell you, having those conversations with elderly people, a lot of it was about regrets. And it made me think, can I live in a way so that my regrets are minimized? We will have them. But in this moment, with this, what I care deeply about, preserving, protecting, and making this democracy ever evolving and better, I have to feel like I
Yay!
that
Sorry.
I that I have done something so that I don't have regrets. Now, other people will value something else. And if they are living in a way that lets them say, okay, I don't have regrets, even if they don't think it's political, caring about something inherently is political.
That's a great statement. It's so very true. Switching subjects a little bit, in the comments, the statement was made by Richard. Most veterinarian practices are owned by large private equity firms. This is what we learned this week. Elizabeth Warren put out a video saying that so many vet offices are now owned by private equity firms, and people are going into what they call pet debt because the overcharging and the influencing people to do something that's beyond their means and so on. So this is a little place where people could be political too. Check and see whether your vet is a private equity vet, and support one that's family owned and operated so that the corporations are not driving this greedy, profit driven stuff. Plus, it's going to help your wallet to not. It turns out our vet is private equity. We paid an incredible amount of money having our cat's teeth taken care of, a bunch of them extracted. Would they ever recommended so many extractions if they weren't owned by some big corporation or private equity firm? So there's a bunch of different ways we can be quietly political that then, again, will reverberate as more and more vet practices discover, oh, people aren't really liking this. Maybe I'll stick to not being private equity. We can have this influence. I just love how, as a movement, we can do things. As a collective, we can do things. So there's this idea that we as a little person can't do anything. Yeah, but if you join up forces with people, suddenly you have more influence. And I just love that we have this community, this ability to connect, again, connection politics, to connect to something larger than we are, whether it's larger in terms of meaning, or it's larger in terms of the number of people involved, or it's larger in terms of pooling our financial resources to doing something bigger. I love that so many Democratic politicians are doing grassroots fundraising. So $5 from this person, $10 from this person, rather than $1 billion from
Right.
some billionaire. And then we've all contributed and we all feel invested and we're all going to be part of this movement that, I mean, here's me being like, oh, big optimist. We can change not only this country, but the world. For us to keep leaning into what matters to us will have an impact. It's not possibly, it is. We don't know what the impact will be, but the impact will definitely be there.
And as Christy said, there's a lot of little ways that veterinary practice think. I did not know that. That's a good example. But family farms, so many farms are owned by corporations. So if you want to go to a fruit stand, look it up. See that you are supporting your local and family farms, minority-owned businesses. if if you can take the time to look, shop local, and help the people who are being entrepreneurs, who are trying to make a living and make it better. The Heather Cox Richardson has been doing these 250 for 250 minutes, and they are just around a minute with different people throughout the history of this country, and some of them are fascinating. One of them was about an African American woman. I don't remember her name. The beginning of the last century, who created a business and became the first female millionaire in this country.
Hmm.
It
I
was
didn't see that one.
it's amazing what can be done if you're following your passion and you're noticing what you care about. You're supporting the kinds of people you want to succeed. So whether it's vets who are independent, with farms who are family farms, whether it's minority owned businesses or small businesses in general, your local bookstore rather than buying on Amazon. It makes a difference. And we can do that. And we don't want to think it's political, but it is because we're caring about the bigger, the bigger story, the world we want to see succeed.
And creating that sense of community as well. I was reading an article recently about how, independent bookstores, the number fell dramatically, and now it's on the rise again, which is great news. That people are supporting it, people are excited about it. Our local Stacks book club, they have gatherings. I mean, they opened a second location. It just really took off, and it's just a place where people love to gather and read books and talk and have coffee and have a pastry. And it's so different than I ordered a book on Amazon and it came.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, I mean, it's satisfying the desire to read whatever it was you got, but it does not satisfy at another level where you can actually feel like, oh, I'm connecting with people. And in my case, I order from bookshop.org, and it can then be associated with a particular bookstore that gets some percentage of whatever you buy. So I associated Stacks Book Club with that. So if I do buy a book, they get a little percentage. Great. And that's then supporting something in my community, which then supports, again, that reverberation. I think we're all about that today, of like these little ripples, drop in the pebble and see, or perhaps you don't see, but you'll have a sense that something is happening here. Energetically, something is happening here. And I think the word just keeps coming to me, admit. Admitting what's true for us. Admitting is also receiving. So receiving the benefit of being part of something larger, and admitting who you are as far as your perspectives. Perhaps you don't go public, but at least admitting to yourself, you know what? This is really important to me. I'm going to support this, perhaps quietly, perhaps out loud. Perhaps you try to get all your friends and neighbors to support it too. But admitting, allowing it in, being able to be true to yourself and to what's important to you.
And I think people would say, would rather, across the political spectrum, would rather support a family farm than a corporate farm, would support a privately owned veterinarian practice rather than a conglomerate practice, private equity practice. I think people would want that. They want to support their neighbors by and large. So
If they
let's.
can afford to. I mean, if you are really financially crunched and you're like, I have to go to Walmart, that's the only thing I can afford, that's, up to you. But also the products within Walmart, there's a distribution of how they are aligned as well. One of the people that I watch, I haven't watched a lot, but I've watched some, is this guy called the Woke Ginger on Facebook. And he was talking about this very specific thing of like, within Walmart, here's some differentiations between brands. Like if you're there, pick this, not this, pick this, not this. So you have an idea of what things are more aligned to you. Maybe not at the Walmart level, but maybe then at the specific product level. And we so often don't know. So Rick brought up the example of Simple Mills just got bought out by a private equity firm. And you don't know it. They don't say on their packaging, hey, and the thing at Walmart is by having this conglomerate type thing, you get to pay less. But in these private equity things, you're probably going to pay more. So starting to pay attention to how things are structured can make a difference. And again, you're voting with your money.
Yeah, and it's we started this with I don't do politics, that that thought, and we do. We all do in some way. And being able to be open to the fact that maybe I am influencing the world through what I am choosing to do, through what I value. And Ben said, align toward love, kindness, and justice.
I love that. I was going to say it if you didn't, because that is a good metric for how we choose to spend our money.
Yeah.
If you're looking at someone that owns prisons, like, not a lot of love, kindness, or justice there. Let's reconsider where we're directing our funds.
Okay. Well, we are at time.
Time flies.
And
and I'm closing today. Sorry. Let's put love into action together.
together. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Oh.